I'll be damned. Flight times match the ship transporting Moff Gideon.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Arey, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 5. So, a lot of people have been grumbling about this season's plot threads and how it all seems like random cutaway stories in the first half of the season. But this is the episode where all the threads start to come together. The New Republic, the amnesty program, the Mandalorian religion, all of it is coming together here to start a larger story. In fact, there's lots of teases for the sequel trilogy in this episode that set up the rise of the First Order. Personally, I love this episode, but let me know what you thought of it down in the comments. So we begin back on Navarro, the original home of the Mandalorian covert back in Season 1. Now I've pointed this out before, but every time we go back to Navarro, the place is just a little bit nicer, as shown through the status of its nice pagoda outside of town. We also see a Gonk power droid walking around in town, but this is a newer model, and not just the same one that we saw being tortured in Jabba's palace. And actually, I'm not sure what this is. Maybe you can let me know what it is down in the comments.
No need, person. I'll look it up. Oh, free ScreenCrush Wi-Fi? I didn't know we had Wi-Fi. I thought we were in 1994. I'll just connect.
Doug, no! Oh!
Oh, shoot. Why not?
Because it's a scam. People use their laptops to set up a hotspot and then they steal your identity. Luckily, nobody in here would do that, right? You know, you have to wonder if all of this is going to come into play later on. Back to the Easter eggs. In the booth outside of town, we can see a Godel working. We first saw them in the Mos Eisley Cantina back in A New Hope. And there's also the same Twilight Renaissance band that we saw a few episodes ago. Greef Karga is in his office planning the expansion to his city. Now, this turns out to foreshadow the ending of the episode, when another leader, the Armorer, begins to plan out the future of her people.
Mandalore must all come together.
The hollow map makes the same sound that we heard in the original trilogy.
Make a note.
And the Arabesh on the map reads East Court, Pole Cushion, and Landing Yard. Right there by that really sweet pagoda.
Man, you sure are into pagodas lately.
Me? Why, I am a pagoda man. I make it my business to know pagodas. All of this is setting up the big battle of the episode, letting us know where each part of the battle is going to be taking place. Our own Colton Ogburn noticed that the ship landing outside of Navarro looks like a Razor Crest, like Din Djarin's old ship. What do you think of that, Doug?
I agree, person.
Oh, you're over there now. What's up?
That's not me. That person has stolen my identity.
No, he has taken my identity.
See, well, there's no way for me to tell because you opened yourself up to identity theft. See, you should have used cybersecurity offered by NordVPN. They're the sponsor of this video. NordVPN has a new feature called Threat Protection, which protects you from malicious sites, downloads, trackers, and intrusive ads. Like recently, I clicked on a suspicious attachment in my email.
Well, that was dumb.
I know it was, Doug, but Threat Protection deleted the download before it finished, protecting my desktop from getting infected. Now, it's the only ad blocker that I use.
Can you really not tell it's me? I'm here with you every day.
Well, isn't NordVPN expensive?
Not at all, Doug. In fact, NordVPN doesn't just protect your devices, it can also save you money every single month.
That's not me.
Well, Doug, have you ever noticed that there are a ton of movies and shows that are just impossible to find on streaming? Like you have to subscribe to like 10 different streaming services and then none of them have that one Spider-Man movie you're trying to watch? Well, see, just about any movie you can think of is streaming on Netflix, but maybe just not in the United States. So you can change your computer's IP address to another country with NordVPN. Then it's easy to watch a Spider-Man movie via another country where it's actually streaming. It's like adding free streaming sites on top of the ones that you're already paying for. And today, we've got a special deal for our subscribers. If you go to nordvpn.com/ScreenCrush or click the link in the description and purchase a 2-year plan, you get 4 months for free. Plus, you can take advantage of their 30-day money-back guarantee. Now back to the Easter eggs.
Wait, are we just not going to address this fake me over here? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, person, identity theft is a shocking crime. Who would do that kind of thing?
The droid here is a kind of protocol droid, very similar to the one that drove Pershing's taxi in the Coruscant episode. And the design was based on Ralph McQuarrie's original design of C-3PO, which was based on Maria the Robot from the 1927 classic film Metropolis. I know that I mention this fact every single video, but you never know who's watching for the first time. And if you are watching for the first time, welcome. And look, Greef Karga seems like a really good High Magistrate. He's doing a decent job, but this?
Where's the rail spur?
You gotta plan your transportation systems first, my guy. Anybody who's ever played SimCity knows that. Power lines, followed by roads, followed by industry, then residential, then commercial zones. And then, as foreshadowed in episode 1 this season, the pirate Gorian Shard comes to town. Remember, Din and Karga had a gunfight with some of his men back in episode 1 this season, and then Din got in a dogfight with his snub fighters that worked for Shard. Shard, by the way, looks like a cross between Moss Man and Pizza the Hut. If you ever had a Moss Man action figure when you were a kid, you know that I'd still just get cringy feeling like touching the surface
office locked.
So, pirates rolling into town to take over the joint is an old story trope that was popular in westerns. In westerns, outlaws would overrun a town of decent people who just wanted to live in peace. The people are always unable to defend themselves, and it takes a hero, or heroes, to come in and settle accounts. We see this in classic westerns like High Noon, High Plains Drifter, Tombstone, Blazing Saddles, and of course also in Kurosawa classics like Yojimbo and The Seven Samurai. However, this episode offers a neat twist on this trope that I'm going to talk about later on.
Oh, so you're saying they're going to have to keep watching the video to hear this interesting twist?
Yes, and I'm also going to explain how we actually see the beginning of the First Order in this episode, and I'll talk about that later on.
More toward the end of the video, so keep watching.
That's right, high five. Now, I like how the pirates and Navarro have very contrasting designs. In the first season, when Navarro was a hive of scum and villainy, it was very dark with muddy colors. Now it's bright and sunny with blue accents and orange banners, and Karga's droids are bright and golden orange. Whereas the pirate ship is a kind of dull red, calling back to how the town used to look. I've pointed this out before, but I think that Shard's Corsair-class ship is a repurposed Separatist ship from the Clone Wars. It has a similar body type, and the gunner turrets are from Republic ships from that era, and even the consoles on the ship look like old Separatist tech. It would make sense for a pirate to reappropriate tech from that war, since a lot of the Separatist fleet would have been abandoned after the droids were ordered to shut down. Now, this kind of pirate ship, the Corsair class, was also first mentioned in the book Thrawn Ascendancy. That book is a prequel to the Clone Wars, so maybe these ships have been around the Outer Rim for a long time. Gorian Shard's Hollow is huge in Karga's office, similar to the intimidation tactics used by Palpatine and Snoke, who always projected themselves at enormous heights. Now, but I wonder if that's actually just like a zoom setting on your hologram projector.
Yeah, like when you tried to do it to your buddy, he's like, hey, just calm down, Doug, you're no Palpatine.
Could be like that, yeah. Karga defends killing pirates in the streets, saying,
He shot first.
and as we've seen in Star Wars, the good guys are never allowed to shoot first. Once again, but with the McClunky. Karga says,
Navarro is now under the protection of the New Republic.
which just a few episodes ago he tried to say that he didn't want big government interfering in his planet's affairs, probably because he didn't want to pay the taxes. Well, now he wants it both ways, and as we see in just a bit, the Republic sucks at protecting their own government, let alone independent worlds. Shard says,
The New Republic can't even protect the Mid-Rim from the pirate nation.
Now, a couple weeks ago, we put out a video about how the Empire was basically a better functioning government than the New Republic. We keep seeing glimpses of this throughout the series, and now we hear that the New Republic can't even stop pirates from attacking the Mid-Rim. That's a big deal. So the Outer Rim of the galaxy is more like the wild reaches of space. That's where gangsters like Jabba the Hutt were the strongest. The core is where all the rich planets are. That's where the Republic is the strongest. But the Mid-Rim should also be under Republic protection, and yet it's not. This is because the Republic got rid of 90% of its military forces at the end of the war. It's why later we see fighter squadrons being stationed on planets instead of on big capital ships like the Mon Cala cruisers. Personally, I think this should have been the plot of the sequel trilogy, like a struggling New Republic can't keep people safe from pirates, so Jedi Ben Solo turns to the dark side to protect his family. But at least we're seeing that play out here, kind of. Shard says,
This isn't Sabak.
That's the poker-like game that Han used to win the Millennium Falcon from Lando. Out on the street during the bombardment, we see a Mon Cala, a Rodian, and This Is Your Mom. Shard also says that Karga was
Guildmaster of the Navarro Hunters.
because he used to manage all the bounty hunters in this system. And then the title comes up, and notice how now it's been given this pirate-esque theme music. And then we go to the base of Spinward Patrol, where pilots are enjoying their downtime, listening to space rock. A Rodian's playing some space billiards in a game that's not unlike John Dot in Star Trek.
Play, Dot, human.
There are, of course, New Republic flags everywhere. A Y-Wing is parked outside, and there's a Mon Cala chilling right here. And there are lots of fun cameos in the bar. Mandalorian directors Dave Filoni, Deborah Chow, and Rick Famuyiwa reprise their Season 1 roles as X-Wing pilots Trapper Wolf, Sash Ketter, and Jib Dodger. The bartender is a Snivian, and I like how she has to let Carson Teva use her holo pad from behind the bar. It's like an old-fashioned landline that they keep behind the counter. After he hears Karga's message, we get the return of Zeb.
Who's Zeb?
Zeb is from the show Star Wars Rebels. Now that show followed a small cell of rebels for about 5 years preceding the Battle of Yavin and A New Hope. Zeb's species, the Lasat, were devastated by the Empire, nearly wiped out, although he does help them to find a home in the series. Zeb was actually based on an early design of Chewbacca, and he is one of 3 characters from Rebels who are making the jump to live action this year. Mandalorian Sabine Wren and Jedi Padawan Ezra Bridger are also said to appear in Ahsoka, and get this, Ezra was the worst part of the show Rebels.
Oh, I didn't know that. Very interesting. That's really cool.
So Zeb is the best kind of cameo in a Star Wars show. It makes total sense that he would would be serving with these forces at this time and place. If you know who he is, that's great. You're pumped to hear Steve Blum do the voice. But if you don't know who he is, he's just some guy, and that's fine too. This is how you define a good cameo in Star Wars. Cameo and Fixer in the Book of Boba Fett, if you know who they are, great. Bad cameos call attention to themselves, like when Ponda Baba randomly showed up in Rogue One. Bad cameo. So Zeb tells him,
I'm gonna forward this to Coruscant.
They're swamped. We'll never get an answer in time.
Now the appearance of Zeb does make me hope that they still do a Rangers of the New Republic show with him as the star, or maybe just a key member of the cast. Rangers of the New Republic was the show that was supposed to star Gina Carano before she made some pretty inflammatory tweets that she was fired for, so her character, Cara Dune, has basically been written off the show, although I think I might have spotted her and I'll talk about her later on. Zeb also has a couple dialogue callbacks when he says,
Good luck. You're gonna need it.
It's gotta be a callback to this.
Good luck. You're gonna need it.
So Zeb and the others here are wearing blue, which is interesting because our own Dodson Sites pointed out that the Blue Squadron was eliminated at the Battle of Scarif. Maybe they brought the squadron back after the end of the war though. Remember, Hera was in that battle. We see the ghost right here. So maybe Hera and Zeb were two survivors of Blue Squadron, and now it's been reformed. Maybe Hera is the secret leader of this team and she could appear live action in this show or in Rangers of the New Republic. Notice that one of the patches on Paul Sun-Hyung Lee's flight suit looks like a Rancor. Now supposedly, Paul made his own costume and got the role after he was joking around with Deborah Chow, saying that his cosplay was good enough to work on set. Senseless Babble on Twitter had a great observation pointing out that the snub fighters look like the old R-41 fighters from the old TIE Fighter video game. Grim Monkey on Twitter said, when scanning for R5, the X-Wing makes the same scanning noise as the snow speeders in The Empire Strikes Back.
Go base. I've got something. Not much, but it could be a life form.
And a lot of you pointed out the Imperial trophy helmets in the bar. There's the obvious, like the Stormtroopers, the Shore Troopers, and the Scout Troopers. On the far left here is an Imperial TIE Fighter helmet. Gregor Wilman on Twitter pointed out this probe droid head. And Joao Nunez tweeted that this RA-7 droid could be the head of the mercenary Q-90 from Chapter 6. Now I know a lot of you don't dig space politics, but I love space politics. I want to see the nitty-gritty of how this government was an ineffectual system that was overrun by a new empire, the First Order.
The last day of the Republic!
So we head to a bureaucratic office with an R5 astromech droid, a Rodian, and of course, Kane. You remember a few episodes ago, she kind of turned Cloner Pershing against the New Republic and showed us how Imperial agents are basically like Hydra, growing like a beautiful parasite inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. Eric Voss over at New Rockstars pointed out that the people in the amnesty program have an Arabesh A on their buttons. Very cool detail. Now to make all this bureaucratic stuff fun, the Colonel is played by Tim Meadows.
I don't care how long it takes. I will keep you here all night.
We can't keep him past 4.
I will keep you here until 4.
Meadows' fellow SNL alum Horatio Sands has already appeared twice on this show, including in the first episode.
Is that me?
Also, notice all these data drives on his desk are the same ones that Pershing was sorting through in a previous episode. So Carson Teva requests help on Navarro, and Kane is very quick to interfere.
They have yet to sign the charter. They're not a member planet.
So what this means is that when the Empire was defeated, the New Republic was formed. But the New Republic didn't force planets to join. A planet could have stayed with the Empire just with no military, or they could be independent. Several systems did join the Republic, but outer rim worlds like Navarro were slower to sign up. When the Colonel hears this, he says,
Uh-oh. It's not good.
Now this is a far cry from the days of the High Republic, which was the peak of galactic democracy. In that age, the motto was, "We are all the Republic," and the Jedi and Republic forces would have helped any world that was in need. The real question is, why did Kane intervene in this one particular case? Remember, Moff Gideon had cloning facilities on Navarro. It was an outer rim hub of Imperial activity. Kane knows that the planet has strategic importance for the Empire, and she wants to keep it from ever joining the Republic. After a verbal tussle with Carson, she says,
"It often takes a new perspective before one is able to see the light."
And light is always used as a metaphor for good in Star Wars. From lightsabers to the light of the Jedi to a person named Rey, as in Ray of Light, literally defeating the dark side of the Sith. But here we have an Imperial perverting the use of light, just as Imperials are slowly chipping away at the structure of the New Republic. Carson gives one final warning.
There's something dangerous happening out there. All these events, it's not a coincidence. And by the time it becomes big enough for you to act, it'll be too late.
And he's talked like this before to Cara Dune.
There's something going on out here. They don't believe it on the core worlds, but it's true. These aren't isolated incidents. They need to be stopped before it's too late.
Carson lands his X-Wing at the Mandalorian culvert and he says,
"Someone I served with in the rebellion is amongst your ranks." Thanks, R5.
R5 is in the rebellion?
Yes, and I gotta say, I didn't really like that R5 had a cameo in the Book of Boba Fett and in the show, but this little twist kind of sells it because it means that Carson has a way to find the culvert. R5 has a weird history. He was on Tatooine in Attack of the Clones in the background right here. Then, like 18 years later, he left, went to space, fought in the rebellion, but then somehow ended up back on Tatooine where he was captured by Jawas. And then we saw what happened to him in A New Hope, and then he just kind of hung around Tatooine until Din bought him. This is why Pelly called him
as good as a day came back from serving in the rebellion.
How'd you know all this?
It is all a chapter from the book, A Certain Point of View. Carson is trying to wake up the New Republic, saying,
The New Republic has to know that the Empire is growing again.
What does the Empire have to do with space pirates?
The Claudia Gray novel Bloodline, which again I have to recommend, details the final years before the First Order revealed themselves to the galaxy. So basically, some worlds in the Republic kind of remained imperial leaning, so they formed the Centrist Party. Not evil, but basically people who wanted a strong central government. On the sly, some of these wealthy worlds were funding the First Order's new military out in the unknown regions. In the book, Leia discovers a vast network of funding that's actually being diverted through criminal organizations, so the rich core worlds would use the underworld to do their dirty work. Basically, these centrist worlds wanted to keep the Outer Rim lawless and unruly, so when the First Order came around, people looked at them as saviors from the pirate scourge.
Wow, all that really should have been in the movies, but I guess we needed to save screen time for Luke milking a sea cow.
Complaining about Star Wars is almost as much fun as loving Star Wars. High five. So then Din has to give a speech to the covert, appealing to them for help. This is very much like 3PO recounting the Star Wars trilogy to Ewoks to earn their aid in Return of the Jedi.
Oh yeah, like when he scared that baby.
Yes, and also never forget that 3PO's skills as a storyteller really grew over the years.
I'm not very good at telling stories. Well, not at making them interesting anyway.
Nutch, Vader.
Notice that Din holds the armorer's hammer like it's the talking stick. I love that the hammer is a symbol of leadership to the culverts because their entire lives revolve around Beskar and Beskar armor. It is the source of their strength, the source of their culture. Later on, the armorer talks about the Great Forge, like it's at the center of Mandalorian society.
Large and ornate. And the air rang with the music of 100 hammers.
But more importantly, Din gives a speech about how they must come out of hiding.
Perhaps it is time for us to live in the light once again, on a planet where we are welcome.
So what we're really seeing this season is the re-emergence of the Mandalorian people. And I think that we're also seeing the re-emergence of the Mandalorian influence in the galaxy. During the Clone Wars, the Mandalorians were essentially the leaders of 1,000 neutral systems. Their control over the galaxy 1,000 years before that actually threatened the stability of the Old Republic. Even though the Mandalorians don't appear in the sequel trilogy, I bet they were a force to be reckoned with in those years. And maybe in 100 years, they'll be the dominant force in the galaxy. And the New Republic will be an even bigger joke. And all of that potential storytelling is starting here in this episode.
Oh, this sounds real familiar.
Well, maybe that's because this plot is very similar to Isaac Asimov's Foundation trilogy, which is also a pretty good show on Apple Plus. So in Foundation, there's a galactic empire. And by the way, the empire is headquartered on a planet that's entirely covered in a city, which was the inspiration for Coruscant. So the galactic empire in Foundation falls, and then a small academic outpost on the edge of the galaxy slowly grows into a new, stronger empire. In this case, the Mandalorians are that new empire that begin in a place of weakness. So then Paz Vizsla takes the mic and reminds the audience that the Mandalorians fought Greef Karga and the bounty hunters when they rescue Grogu in Chapter 3. Now, we expect Paz Vizsla to be like a bad dude. He challenged Din in the covert, put a knife to his throat, and then he challenged him for the Darksaber. And he is from the same family as Clone Wars villain Pre-Vizsla. So it was actually a really nice surprise when he took Din's side, saying there's a clear reason to help him.
Because we are Mandalorians!
The speech and the turnaround totally fooled me. And then Bo-Katan takes command of the troops because she has the most experience in a pitched battle. She fought in the Clone Wars and against the Empire for decades. We learned that Gordian's ship is a cumulus class, which is adorable. Cumulus clouds are soft, fluffy, cauliflower clouds that don't mean anything. During the High Republic, pirates called the Nihil generated giant clouds in space called storms, and they attacked ships with lightning.
Yeah, man, the state of piracy in the galaxy is not what it used to be, I tell you what.
And Bo-Katan uses the battle planning time as a way to convince the covert to settle on this world.
You lived there once, hiding in the sewers. But now, you can be heroes.
Now it's important that she is the one who is bringing the covert out of the shadows because it shows her taking a leadership position. Notice she also says a place for you to settle, not for us to settle, showing that she still doesn't see herself as 100% part of this community. But as we see later in the episode, that's actually a strength for her and not a weakness. Back on the planet, we see the pirates have retaken the bounty hunter bar, which had been turned into a school. The various pirate species we see are a Trandoshan, a Weequay, Aqualish, Klaatu, a Quarren, basically all the species that are always bad guys, which is just getting silly, man. You're telling me there's not a single Quarren in the galaxy who's just a solid dude with a good job who is trying to support his family? They all gotta be bad guys and space pirates.
Yeah, that's just kind of racist.
It is a little racist, thank you. They also shoot at the Kowakian monkey lizards, you know, like Salacious Crumb. Now, the monkey lizards are also a sign of progress on Navarro. Now they roam free in the trees, but in episode 1, they were being roasted over spittles. Let me know down in the comments, would you eat a salacious crumb?
I would, but then again, I eat just about anything.
Yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. The dead birds are getting out of hand. Now, the bridge of the ship has these separatist-like consoles that I mentioned earlier, and I love how it's being steered with a giant wheel, just like on a pirate ship. The coxswain here is an Ugnaught in an ugly pirate sweater, and I love this. This is just great fun. Even the growths on Gorian Shard's face look like a pirate's beard, like Blackbeard.
What's called Blackbeard, Spar and Grill, and other delicacies and delights, and fishing equipment.
And then the battle begins on two fronts, with Dent's N1 Naboo starfighter from the Phantom Menace taking on the Snub fighters, while Bo-Katan leads the ground forces. In fact, this plays a lot like the battle for Naboo in the Phantom Menace, with the Armorer sneaking into the command center like Padme seizing the Viceroy. A few highlights from the battle: the Anzellans did not get the memo to evacuate to the lava flats. God, I love these guys.
No, Grogu. Not a pet.
Or, you know what, they could have just decided to stay no matter what, instead of abandoning their shop to the pirates.
I mean, they work on droids for a living. Maybe they probably figured that pirates need droid work done too.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. So, the monkey lizards get their payback, tipping off the Mandalorians about an ambush.
Possible ambush. Take cover.
But then the pirates get themselves caught in a crossfire, which reminded me an awful lot of this scene in the movie Tombstone.
Got you in a little crossfire. How you like that?
That movie is also about a group of lawmen clearing a town of occupying bandits.
You tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear?
God, what a movie. Like any good battle, it swings back and forth. Paz Vizsla gets them out of the crossfire with his minigun, and then the stationary gun on the tower pins him down. In the air, I thought it was very cool that the pirates knew the names of Bo-Katan's ship.
Engaging the gauntlet.
For many years, the gauntlet has been the scourge of the skies. Arr.
When the battle begins to slip away, Gorian says, a cuss word that we've heard a lot in this show before.
Dinkferric. Dinkferric.
So the Mandalorians drive the pirates out toward the lava flats where, by the way, Greef Karga once said this.
Come on, baby. Do the magic hand thing.
Those were the days, guys. But then the people of Navarro are the final heroes, capturing what's left of the pirate forces. Vane does live to fight another day, though. During his speech, he says,
Hereby cede all land from the western lava flats to Bullock Canyon.
Now, Bullock is a really sweet touch because it's named after Jeremy Bullock, the late actor who originally played Boba Fett, who was the original Mandalorian. Now, notice that for a moment, Karga forgets his title.
Magistrate Greef Karga.
Hi, Magistrate, sir.
This is interesting because before in the season, he's been the one correcting other people about his elevated status.
Magistrate Karga.
That's High Magistrate Karga to you.
Even employing robots to hold his cloak from the ground. This is showing how this experience has humbled him, maybe showing that eventually he'll cede to Mandalorian control of his system. The Mandalorians give him a salute, and Bo-Katan does not follow suit, showing that, again, she is still among these Mandalorians, but not necessarily of these Mandalorians. Then the Armorer summons her back to her original forge, where we hear the same music play from the first episode. She talks about her small forge as she surveys its destruction. Remember, the Empire cleared out this covert off-screen in retaliation for Den taking Grogu. So as the Armorer sees this forge, she's actually dreaming of the Great Forge on Mandalore that we mentioned earlier.
I have been to the Great Forge on Mandalore.
She decides that she wants greatness for her people, and maybe she was inspired by Den's words about coming out of hiding. She decides to grant Bo-Katan special dispensation, permission to remove her helmet.
We must walk the way together.
She then tells Bo-Katan,
it is a sign that the next age is upon us.
And look, to the Armorer, it is incredibly significant that Bo-Katan was the one who saw the Mythosaur. At first, I thought the Mythosaur dragged Den down to the bottom, but that's not what happened at all. Watch.
In my heart.
And then later on, he says,
I saw the chasm passing me as I fell. I didn't realize it was so deep.
So basically, the Imperial attacks on this world caused like an underground rift to open, and then Den just stepped into it, and then his armor was too heavy for him to swim out on his own.
I was wrong.
So Bo-Katan saw the Mythosaur while Den was unconscious. She is the one who the Mythosaur has chosen to lead the Mandalorians out of exile. At least that's what the Armorer thinks.
She can bring all tribes together.
Now, we've talked a lot on this season about how the Mandalorians are a parallel to the plight of Jews in the real world, with the covert having similar traditions to ultra-Orthodox Jews. So the Armorer's use of the word tribes feels very deliberate. In the past, Mandalorians have been divided into clans and houses, but as far as I know, this is the first mention of tribes. Abraham's children famously became the founders of the 12 tribes of Israel, and the Abrahamic promise is when God told Abraham that he would establish a land for his people. The parallel here being that the Mandalorians are returning to resettle their homeland, much like the Israelites returning from slavery in Egypt.
It is time to retake Mandalore.
Now, we're not 100% sure what she's telling Bo-Katan here. Is she allowing her to remove her helmet temporarily so she can go be a prophet for the way? Or is she saying that it's okay if some Mandalorians choose to show their faces? I think it's the latter, and the Bo-Katan seeing the mythosaur is regarded as a holy vision for the armorer, so she's seeking out a new way. Now, she does tell her,
Bo-Katan walks both worlds.
which makes me think that maybe the armorer is softening her definition of what it means to be a Mandalorian. It might also mean that the culvert will all get permission to remove their helmets.
Hey, take your helmet off. I'll do got your nose.
Along this idea, Paz Vizsla recently got a Star Wars series black action figure with a removable helmet, and his face looks exactly like Mandalorian creator Jon Favreau, probably because he voices the character, just as he voiced his distant relative pre-Vizsla.
Those criminals will scatter and Mandalore will be ours.
And after Bo-Katan removes her helmet, the armorer doesn't say this is the way, because she's not sure what she's doing is right. And like she said,
one does not speak unless one knows.
The idea that Bo-Katan is going to unite the tribes does make her a messianic type figure, like how Moses and Joshua united the 12 tribes of Israel. And Mikey Brickman on Twitter pointed out that the shaft of light on Bo-Katan in this scene implies that she is like a beacon to her people. And then we go from this hopeful beginning to seeing what happened to the guy who destroyed Mandalore in the first place, Moff Gideon. Carson is out investigating the wreckage of a Lambda-class shuttle, which we saw the Empire use all throughout the original trilogy. Reed tells him,
the details are classified.
Now this is interesting. Now we know that Moff Gideon was broken out of jail, but why is the New Republic keeping it quiet? Is this because they don't want anyone to know that they let a Moff escape their custody? Or is it because certain elements in the New Republic are loyal to the Empire and they're protecting the guy who's trying to clone Palpatine? We see several dead security forces on the ship wearing the same uniform as the prison guards we saw back in Season 1, Episode 6. And look, I'm just saying, if they were going to kill off Cara Dune to write Gina Carano off this show, this would have been the moment. You could show a muscular arm and then Carson says, oh no, not Marshal Dune. In fact, you never know. There is an arm here that is not wearing the uniform of a New Republic soldier, so this might be her. We might have seen her death confirmed on The Mandalorian. Also, I did not know that an astromech's little radar sensor could detach and fly around. That is very cool and makes total sense. R2 would always use this thing to scan an area. So of course, it would be able to fly upward to get an aerial view.
But why didn't we see that in the original trilogy?
Well, dude, R2 was already 30 years old when A New Hope rolled around, so maybe he didn't have that upgrade. I mean, hell, his jet rockets didn't even work in Empire Strikes Back when he was stuck in the swamp, so like, give the little guy a break.
I will, because I'm just a little guy too.
Yes, you are. But the big cliffhanger of this episode was this.
It's a fragment of Beskar alloy.
Are you saying that Moff Gideon was taken by Mandalorians?
So there are a few possibilities for this. When the Empire controlled Mandalore, they didn't really have to occupy it at first. So like at the end of the Clone Wars, Bo-Katan retook Mandalore with Republic forces, which right after that became Imperial forces. So Bo-Katan was named governor for the Empire. She didn't really like working for the Empire, so they ousted her and replaced her with a guy named Gar Saxon. And Gar Saxon was loyal to the Empire. So he forced other clans and houses to be loyal to the Empire as well. And after he was killed, his younger brother Tiber Saxon became governor, and he was even more fanatical.
Palpatine has shown me the way to true power.
So there are Mandalorians out there who were loyal to the Empire. After Bo-Katan took the Darksaber, she led a rebellion against Imperial forces, and then the Empire responded by destroying their world. But here's the thing. It's possible that Mandalorians who were loyal to the Empire actually blamed Bo-Katan's rebellion for the destruction. During that time, Moff Gideon defeated Bo-Katan in combat and took the Darksaber. This would have made him the leader of the Mandalorians in the eyes of some people.
But Moff Gideon is not a Mandalorian.
Neither was Darth Maul, but after he won the Darksaber, lots of Mandalorians recognized him as their new leader. The point is, there may be Mandalorians out there who are actually loyal to Moff Gideon. Somebody pointed out to me that the Mandalorian helmet in the opening might be Gideon's helmet. It is lit red, which means that it belongs to a bad guy.
Or it can mean that the Mandalorians kidnapped Gideon to put him on trial.
Yeah, but that's not fun. We are about to get a Mandalorian civil war that is the Empire versus Bo-Katan, and I am excited. And just a reminder, go to nordvpn.com/ScreenCrush or click our link in the description to get 4 months for free on a 2-year plan. Click our link and get your computer protected today.
You tell them, person. Oh, hey, why are there cops outside?
To arrest you, you dumb identity thief.
Oh, no.
You knew who was the real me all along?
Of course, Doug, you're my best friend. High five. And, you know, also you're a little dog. Well, let me know what you guys thought of the episode down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.